Hi everybody, it's Samantha again with the NVLD project live on Facebook again this week, or this month I guess, since we do this once a month. We're very excited today to have two of our newest partners here from Ed Therapy NYC, and they're going to explain a little bit about what they do and stuff, but I just want to introduce you guys. I'm going to actually turn this one over to them today. I'm not going to be a part of this, but they're going to talk to you guys about life after high school,
right? And
what these adults and parents and what everybody can do to make people, once they graduate, successful outside of the high school realm. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys, and hopefully we can't really see ourselves, so give us just a second to make sure we're doing good.
We hope that you can see us.
But that's okay. If you can see us,
if you can
happy.
See us, exactly, we're happy. So,
oh look, I see myself on your phone.
There we go.
There we are.
They
Fantastic.
should see this turn.
Are we good?
I think we're good.
Okay.
You guys can get started.
Okay, let's go.
Hi, I'm Susan Micari, and together with Dr. Annalisa Perfetto, I founded Ed Therapy NYC, which is a practice in which we remediate and help people with 4 strands of learning disabilities, one of which is NVLD, which is what we're here to talk about today.
So I was so thrilled to meet and start working with Susan. We recognize that while there are plenty of resources for children, adolescents, and teens who have learning differences or disabilities, that starts to fall off a little bit once these individuals get to college. So when we realize that adults were not really being served, adults with learning differences and disabilities were not being served, we decided to form Ed Therapy NYC, which is totally focused on the learning needs of adults with learning differences and disabilities.
That's right. We went out there looking for help for adults and didn't find any, so we started a company. That's what we do. So we want to get started. Life after high school with NVLD. I'm going to be looking at notes from time to time because I'm a little nervous, guys, but you understand. So we have this business, and why do we? Because just because you got your dream job or you got into college doesn't mean that your learning disability went away. Your NVLD is still there. So we wanted to start off, we're going to have 3 little parts and then some questions. We're going to start talking first about general tips for adults with NVLD. Then we're going to talk about college-bound students with NVLD and what to do. We're going to talk a little bit about tips for parents, and then what?
And then, because...
Oh, non-college bound.
Exactly. You might be entering the workforce. You may have finished college, or you may be not planning to go to college, but we have some great tips for you as well, no matter where you are in life, no matter what your plan is. But life after high school goes on, even when you have NVLD.
And as we all know, NVLD means that sometimes meeting new challenges without a template, without a how-to, is really scary and tricky. And we know that it can be quite overwhelming to be an adult and suddenly supposed to be able to function all by yourself with no help. So here's the first tricky part of this, general tips. Everybody with NVLD is different. What is NVLD? It's a set of guidelines, isn't it? Every single person is different. Not everybody has every symptom that's so far listed under this category called NVLD. So the first most important thing for you to do is to learn about your own profile. If you've been lucky enough to have an evaluation that categorizes the things that you're good at and the things that are tricky, you've probably noticed that your verbal IQs are here and your performance IQs are not so much. What does that mean? Does it mean you're not smart in a certain way?
No, not at all.
It just means that you've got some intertest, what we call intertest scatter. Some things are hard, but those things that are hard can really slow you down. Why? Because we all get judged based on how well we speak. And the expectations people have of us are utterly dependent on language. Most of you who have NVLD are fabulous
with language, exactly. Incredibly verbal.
One guy I am teaching now, just took the GRE, and he got 97th percentile on the verbals, which is actually 100% because you can't get 100%.
Right.
You know what it's like.
So we like to remind everyone that your learning profile, your cognitive profile, is You can compare it to your thumbprint, right? My thumbprint is not the same as yours. It's not the same as Susan's. Does it mean that our thumbprints are no good? No, they're unique.
Okay.
So your learning, I don't know, Susan. I think my thumbprint's nicer than yours. So your learning profile is just your unique picture, your unique set of skills. What is good for you? What is easy for you? What comes naturally to you? And what doesn't? And no one is naturally amazing at everything.
Right. That's the thing nobody understands, is that everybody's got some unevenness. What we love to do is teach you how to use your strengths to overcome and deal with those parts of your profile that cause you trouble. The wonderful thing about NVLD people is you are smart, and you can be taught a routine that helps you understand the routines you need to develop. What am I talking about? I'm just saying you can be taught to do almost any pattern that at first seems mysterious or scary or tricky to you.
Right. Now, for NVLD individuals, that is something that can be difficult, like Susan said. Recognizing new patterns for the first time can really be a horror. But recognizing patterns is a skill that can be taught and can be learned.
And we do it all the time. We've certainly helped guys go from, and I'm saying guys just in the general way that we use guys that doesn't make any sense. I mean women too, folks. We've certainly worked with people who have bombed out of college or bombed out of some jobs or bombed out of grad school, even medical school.
But really because they didn't have certain skills. So their inability to get through whatever program that they were in really did not have anything to do with their smarts, their IQ. It has a lot to do with being prepared and knowing how to tackle the things that don't necessarily come naturally to you when you have NVLD.
And what we like about getting an evaluation, why we recommend it, is that it helps you identify what you're good at and what's difficult. And if you know that, then you know that this is not a global condemnation of you to have a bunch of letters that you refer to when you think about your cognitive strengths and weaknesses. It's just part of you, right? NVLD is part of not all.
Exactly. Doesn't need to define your entire existence.
And nor is it something that's meant to tell you that you aren't as good as somebody else. Your strengths put to good use are going to make you fabulous in your job. I have a guy I taught working for the NSA now. Why? He forgets no detail ever in his life. I know this because he can do the entire script of every Monty Python movie ever made.
Verbatim.
For those of you who are older, you know what I'm talking about. For the young folks, I wish you could see them. They're so funny. But
YouTube, they're on YouTube.
But he does them to perfection, and if I ever try to play along with him, he'll correct me instantly. He's also fabulous at telling me that when I'm boring. He's very honest. So another thing that's so great about NVLD people is tell us the truth all the time.
Amazing qualities like honesty, a real attention to detail. So knowing how your NVLD brain works is something that really can empower you. Knowing how your unique learning profile affects the way you learn, think, and do can make it much easier to navigate life after high school when you have NVLD.
But there's one big thing I really want to talk about. This is establishing healthy life routines. This is surprisingly hard for some people with NVLD. It's one of the first things I work on is how to negotiate the space-time continuum, how to get healthy sleep and wake patterns set,
so important.
How to do important stuff like do the laundry on your own. I know that sounds strange, maybe a little strange, but a lot of people haven't been taught how. And then you have to figure that out at college or wherever you are with one of those key cards now that runs your washing machine. I'm very frightened of it myself.
Now, something that really contributes to being able to establish healthy life routines is getting a good sense of how to organize your life, yourself, what you need to do, in terms of your personal life, your academic life, and what you need to do for work. So organization skills, which that's really
what you need to do.
An umbrella term. Oh, I hear myself again. Organization skills such as time
The phone
management
is being
skills. There we go. I know.
removed.
Sorry if there was an echo. Time management skills, calendaring skills, how to keep everything in a place where you know where it is. Now, in terms of calendaring, Susan and I love to recommend using color coding to help you keep certain tasks very recognizable, right? So maybe you have, if you're in college, maybe you have a color per course that you're taking so that you know, well, if I see green, that must mean my environmental science class, or if I see purple, that must mean something that I need to do for my part-time job.
And we love to do backward planning. Here's the due date. What am I going to do every day to today to get to that goal and get it done on time? Now, I'll tell you what, learning how to handle time, materials, and space actually takes a lot of training. It's not something I can't hand you a planner and say, go do that. Because if you would have done it already if it wasn't hard. We want on our calendars a band to appear on every day in your calendar, which is sacred fun time. You have to have fun. You have to have regular sleep schedule, a regular wake up schedule. You have to put all your work hours in, or your projects in, or your classes in. We have to fit around those things. Therapy appointments,
exercise,
and exercise is critical. And I know that's the first thing to go, but it's very helpful in establishing good sleep and wake patterns.
Absolutely, and also it has so many purported benefits, right? It helps with your anxiety. It helps you to relieve stress.
You could just walk. You don't have to do anything
walking
fancy.
Counts, right? Absolutely. So what we really recommend as our last tip for. As our last in general tip for anyone who has NVLD, no matter whether you're in college, planning to go to college, getting a job, already have a job, is to find out really what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and you might refer back to your neuropsychological evaluation for this, or you might task a friend or family member for some honest help about this. But finding out, really taking an honest look at, here's what I'm great at, and here's what's hard for me, or what I'm not so great at. Once you know where you need the help, you can find people who can help you. So maybe that's an educational therapist like me and Susan, or maybe it's psychotherapy, or maybe it's a peer tutor, maybe it's a social skills group. It depends. We can't give you, there's no magic formula because there's so much uniqueness. It depends on you and your needs.
And yet, somehow, after 27 years of doing this, we've got some pretty good skills at predicting what you will need to do and
Absolutely.
how long that will take. So learning how to handle space, time, and materials is critical. Now, if you want to talk about going to college, let's say that you are planning to go away to school next year, or it might be grad school or medical school, we wanted to remind you of this. 2/3 of people who have learning disabilities do not disclose that fact to student services. What does that mean? It means that about 1/3 of college kids do not return to college after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
They've had it. They cannot handle the sudden responsibility to handle all of their time, all of their activities, all of their due dates on their own. And nor should you expect to. You can't do it by yourself.
And you don't need to. You don't need to. With going to college and entering an entirely new situation, and remember, if you have NVLD, new situations, new patterns, that's tricky. The hard thing, right? It can really take a toll on your mental health, and it can take a toll on your physical health, as a psychosomatic response to that. So there really is, we can't stress this enough, it is so important to go to your Center for Student Accessibility or your Student Service Center, whatever it's called at your college or university, and tell them about whatever it is that you know about your learning profile. If you have a psychoeducational evaluation or a neuropsychological evaluation, whatever you want to call it, the more information you disclose to student services, the more accommodations you can receive.
And here's the trick of it. You have to do it yourself now at age 18 at college. Your parents
can't do it for you.
They legally can't handle this for you anymore. So it's tempting not to disclose. It's tempting to say, I'll just handle this somehow. I just want to be one of the the crowd. I don't want to have to be different or special. And yet
everyone in the crowd is different and
That's
special.
right.
So there's no reason not to go take advantage of the Center for Student Services or Center for Student Accessibility. It will help you so much. It will take a large weight off your shoulders, let's
And
say.
you have to be the one to ask for accommodations now. You can't just say, here's my report.
Right.
No, you have to say, these are the accommodations that I would like. And then you have to talk to people about that and secure them. Every school is different. Some schools that you would expect to be very helpful in terms of scheduling make you ask for extended time on a test each and every time.
Every single time. So that's a
you
big,
take a test.
That's a lot to
really
remember.
hard.
Now, think maybe you have 4 tests in a semester and you're taking 4 classes. Now you have 16 times that you need to remember to secure accommodations for just a test. That we're not talking about projects yet and any of the other assignments that you might need to take care of. So in addition to going to student services, it's also important that you speak to your professors about who you are as a learner.
Absolutely.
So student services can, in some cases, negotiate for you and reach out to your professors. But a lot of times you will find a better result if you speak to your professors yourself.
You have to practice this. If you have a counselor at Student Services, they may tell you which professors are more understanding and amenable to talking about accommodations and special needs, but they may not. So you've got to take this seriously, but not personally.
It's not personal. It's just what you are deserving of. If you have a psychoeducational evaluation and you have a diagnosis, then you are owed. These are things that you have the right to. So speaking of psychoeducational evaluations or neuropsychological evaluations, usually in college, you need one every 5 years. So if you have one before you get to college, you should be good more or less for the duration of the time that you're in college. You might need to have testing again if you then choose to go on to graduate school. But that's something that obviously student services should be able to guide you with, to help you with. They might tell you, okay, now we need to have another evaluation. Maybe your evaluation is a little bit old.
But don't expect it. This is something that your parents can absolutely help you keep track of if you would like that kind of help.
And if you're not sure, find someone who can tell you. Get in touch with someone like a neuropsychologist or a learning specialist, an educational therapist who really knows what is needed and when, and who can help you figure out when it's time to reevaluate and what you might need.
We're going to recommend highly that you have some people on your side when you go away for the first time. That should be an ed therapist or learning specialist, a psychologist, someone who can help you, even via Skype, although it's awfully nice to find someone through student services or have some expert in the area that you can physically go see. It's just warmer, isn't it?
Speaking of in-person connections, if you're going away to college and you have NVLD, you should try to find out if there is a club or a social group for students with NVLD. And if there isn't one, maybe you might even think about starting one.
Right. Why not start a little online forum and get together from time to time? Another thing that needs to be on your calendar, and I'm not kidding about this, is fun time. You have to schedule time to go out to a concert or a cafe or out with people to do fun things. You can't get stuck in your room, stuck online. It's not good for you. So in addition to walking all around and taking a map, your mom or dad can help you with this, and learning the campus. This is where I am. This is my dorm. Here are where my classes are each and every day. And practice that before you have to start on the first day of school. Go ahead and practice your orienteering skills. Find yourself on campus and make sure that you know where you're going. It's just a helpful, nice thing not to feel lost for the first week. So go ahead and practice that early. Nobody will know what you're doing.
And if you are feeling lost, one thing I've always told my students, if you have a question or you're feeling some kind of way, I can guarantee you that you're not the only one. So find someone else and make it a social thing. For people with NVLD, sometimes social interactions can be a little bit clunky, can be a little bit tricky. So the more you practice, just like anything else, the more you practice with your social interactions, the better you'll get, the more you'll learn, how certain types of social situations in certain arenas are supposed to go. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get at doing it. So having some kind of social interaction that serves two purposes, right? It gets you to interact with other people who may be like you, who may be different from you, and also helps you kind of learn how to orient yourself around your campus or school complex, depending on where you are.
And don't be afraid to practice this stuff with your specialist, your designated go-to peer or expert tutor. And I'll tell you why. I had a brilliant kid once, just a wonderful kid, but he developed, in addition to his NVLD, some deep anxiety, so deep that he couldn't stay in school for a while. So we did a semester of homeschooling together. And this young fellow didn't know how many steps away from someone he should stand when he was asking a question. He wasn't sure about the protocol of question asking. So we would go to the Metropolitan Museum. I would say to this young man, hold up now, you can't run into the space, into the arms of this nice lady who's answering questions and blurt out a question and expect her to know what you're talking about. 5 steps back, face down, look up, make eye contact, and say, excuse me, and wait for her to look. Now, this was a very young guy. And gosh, I guess he was 7th, 8th grade. And then ask your question, then be quiet, make eye contact, and wait for an answer. You can even repeat it back if you have to. Now, you're sophisticated people, you might think that's just the silliest thing, but this kid needed it. He went on to Yale and did just fine. But he really needed that kind of practice for a while because he honestly didn't know where he should stand. And I understand that, right? So if you're one of the people who has a little difficulty with social distance, where should I stand? How should I make eye contact? What's polite? What's not? You can learn all of those skills, and with a little practice, you'll be just fine at it. You know, there are all kinds of reasons people can be awkward at a party. We're all nervous. We all want to be liked. We all want to tell a great joke. But this can all be learned. So don't you worry about it. But, you know, this is one of the things that you can practice specifically before you start your new social group for NVLD folks who have brilliant things to say, incredible humor, and tell the truth. I'll join. I think it just sounds like a great group, doesn't it?
Let us know if you start one. We would love to.
Come.
We'll come and hang out with you.
That's right.
We also recommend if let's say you're having some difficulty with a specific academic course.
This is a big one.
You know, you can always seek the help of a learning specialist or an ed therapist or someone who has a lot of experience doing this, or you could go, depending on how much help you need, another route. You could consider peer tutors or even just a peer mentor. So if you're taking a course, I don't know, an engineering course or whatever course you may be taking, and you find someone who's taken that course before, it might be a great thing to do to ask them to tutor you in that subject area or act as a mentor for you. That's right.
And why do we want to do this? Why go to another student for help with a course?
2 reasons.
Yes. One, find somebody who already took the course. Right. They can tell you, they've already driven that road. Right. They can tell you how to do it, right? They'll know the professor. They can give you tips about how, what the first exam is like, does everybody want to go home crying after that first test?
I've certainly been
probably, but this person can give you a heads up about navigating this new situation in this class, which of course makes a life very anxious for you, does for everybody, but extra anxious for you. So a peer tutor also has done that class. They can help you with the homework. They can help you. They can tell you, yeah, I know you've got this assignment, this CAM assignment, but it won't be on the test. And you're like, oh,
thank goodness,
okay.
Right?
Well, let's pass the homework, but not worry too much about this. So those kinds of tips about what to study are super helpful. Also, a peer tutor can use a couple of bucks. Right? Mm-hmm. So you're not going to have to pay a ton of money to get expert help that an awful lot of experts like us, unless we've already, done the school with a particular kid, like the pre-med at Columbia that I went through with a guy. If your learning specialist or your ed therapist doesn't know the class, a peer tutor is going to be like gold.
Right, absolutely. And it's
Plus a friend,
another,
right, a new friend.
It's another opportunity to make a social connection. So you're getting two benefits here, right?
See, I almost remembered both. I'm very, very excited. Now, here's another thing you got to think about is course load.
Yes, so important.
No joke. It's very possible that you will need to take 4 rather than 5 classes, or 3 rather than 4.
Depending on what you're taking.
What if you have a lab?
Right.
If you're going to take, if you're taking sciences plus a lab, you are now employed full-time and you cannot be fired.
There is nothing wrong with doing what you can handle so you can do it well. As a matter of fact, it's counterintuitive to take 5 courses and do them all poorly. So it's really important to take a look at what you're taking and when, planning out the courses that you're going to take
and how
across.
stressful. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
I do that.
And exactly
sometimes.
how stressful they're going to be. If you know that a certain course in particular is going to be stressful for you, then maybe we don't take that course along with another taxing or demanding course at the same time.
Right. What if you have to take chemistry and you know that you will never be able to see every little symbol correctly? It's just too hard for you. Well, we can get an app to read it aloud to you. You can use a smart pen to read it aloud. You've got a lot of different options, but know that that's going to take much more time for you than it might for
Right.
somebody else. So maybe you're taking chem and a lab and 1 or 2 other classes.
Right.
Now this you're going to have to clear with your advisor, who's probably connected to student services but might not be.
Mm-hmm.
So this is another on your list of important phone numbers to have. That person will
And
be
also
top the
another
list.
important opportunity to choose to disclose your diagnosis. And if your advisor is not in contact with student services and doesn't know that you have NVLD or any other type of learning issue or difference, it's important that you let them know. And if you need to direct them to student services, then that's a good idea.
And trust me, very few people are going to read your report.
Right. Now,
They don't have time.
The reports are long. Let's segue a little bit into some tips for parents of college-bound students. So parents, we all know that the thing that you want most is to have your child be successful, right? But the game changes a little bit once they're either going away to college or maybe they're going to college close by home. Regardless, they are adults now, so your role changes. So the first thing we suggest is whether you will always still be involved, of course, but while your child is making a list of where they will be applying to school, help them pick a school that understands NVLD. Some colleges and universities say that they're really good at handling learning disabilities, but you need to be sure that they do what they say they do. So if you need to, consult with an expert. For example, Dr. Lauren Brinkerhoff.
Happen to have one.
Yes, he is the person to go to if you want data on what schools have resources for NVLD.
So we're going to include his email. He said we could. I checked with him the other day. He's up at Harvard. He helps the people with learning disabilities there get their rights and looks after that. He also works with the SAT, ACT people, dealing with accommodations, though he's going to farm that out a little bit. But he has a private practice. He can help you and your children or your NVLD child find the right school and negotiate with student services, and once you've gotten in, set up a proper surround of help for your child so that your kid's going to be okay there, and so that you can trust it. So we're going to include Dr. Lauren Brinkerhoff's email in the
we have a handout for all of you. There's one thing that we can really stress, no matter where you are in life. If you have NVLD, it's important to establish a team. If you're in college or grad school, that definitely involves student services, your professors, whoever's helping you, your parents, okay? But even if you're not in an academic setting, you need to have a team. You need to have help where you need it so that you can learn to be successful, and you will learn to be successful.
And this is where your parents are really going to be super helpful. Parents, you can contact student services to get resources. You can find a list of experts in the neighborhood. You can use your own list of people that your child might need to Skype with. You want to make a connection with emotional support services at the college.
Absolutely.
Just because it's handy and important to do. Anxiety and depression, These are both really big problems on campus, and these can become problems for kids with NVLD. You want to make sure that your son or daughter has the name and number of somebody they can call if they are feeling like they can't handle this semester, which could happen more than once.
Yeah, feelings of overwhelm are so common on, in the college and grad school space that it's important to be preemptive here. If you know that you're going to be entering a stressful situation, it's important to establish a team around you or around your son or daughter so that you are setting them up for success in every way that you possibly can.
That's right. So the role that you will take now is kind of a case management role, mom and dad. You're going to make sure that the team is assembled, that the team is working well, and that your child is making those appointments. That you can do, and it's an enormously helpful thing until your NVLD son or daughter is
learns
ready.
How to do them on their own.
And that takes time. It's not something that's going to be done in a semester.
We need to remember, we go from our parents making every appointment for us to having to make our own dentist appointments, and now add everything else that needs to be added in when you're in college or grad school. It's not easy.
And you're not the only one. I have this neighbor, the nicest guy. He's like a television star. He's very cute. But one day he knocked on my door and he said, "Could you show me how to work the washing machine?" I went, "Really?" It just so happens
I know how to do that. So actually,
I'll show you. Let's go. So you know what I mean? It's not just you. Everybody needs help at what they need help at. We're allowed to ask for help. We're allowed to have anxiety. We're allowed to get sad.
We are human beings.
This is just being real. All that we're saying is that for you, there are some, for us, since we're experts, predictable problems.
Right.
And we can help you make sure that those are not mountains you can't climb, just little hills that you can.
And now back to a point that we made earlier for our general tips for anyone who has NVLD, talking about healthy life habits and everyday life skills. I really want to reiterate that these are not things that come naturally to everyone. So if you are a parent of a child who is heading away to college and they've never had to take care of their own laundry and they've never had to really manage their space.
Or shut off the computer game at the end of the day.
Okay. Help them learn, help them establish, and help them perfect or try to perfect healthy habits. And these habits really span all areas of life, whether it's how to use technology properly and in a way that is not invasive to other healthy habits that you need to do. It's, again, establishing a sleep routine and a wake routine. It's establishing how to organize your home, your dorm, your apartment, wherever it is that you are. How to plan, how to use a calendar, whether you like to use a traditional paper calendar or you like to use apps.
I like you to have a big wall calendar. I don't care.
Right.
You know, yes, you're going to need one in your phone, but we need something big
Visual,
that's easy to see.
Right.
And erasable, maybe.
And color-coded. We love color-coding things. We love color. Okay, our last section of the day. We know that not everyone is in an academic setting. Maybe you're planning to go right to a job. Maybe you've finished college already. Maybe you're done with your schooling and it's time to head into the workforce. So the first big tip that we would like to give you is if you have NVLD, and again, going back to what we said about your learning profile being like a thumbprint, right? We know certain things are tough for people with NVLD. We know that most NVLD people have certain strengths. That doesn't mean that your strengths and weaknesses are exactly according to this suggested list, right? So if you're not sure what career would be good for you or what career you would be a good fit for, you might consider consulting with a career coach. So again, it's so important to learn about yourself. The more you know about yourself, the more you can make good decisions when it comes to choosing a career path that you can enjoy and feel fulfilled in.
But I'm really a big fan of going the cognitive route rather than the preference route. It's helpful for you to check off boxes of things that you think you might like to do.
Of course.
It's much better to go to a place like the Johnson O'Connor Institute. They're in Boston, they're in New York, probably other cities too, and find out what your cognitive strengths and your psychological profile enable you to become good at.
Right.
Of course, the things that we're good at are the things we end up liking to do. In college, as in high school, you're generalists. You do not get to get fired from math. But when you grow up,
if math is tough for you, you don't have
to do math for the rest of your life. It's a beautiful thing. Now, if you're going to go out in the workforce, we got to find a way to evaluate your strengths and weaknesses. A place like Johnson O'Connor will show you the professions that your cognitive profile
matches
fit,
well with,
and also tell you where in the country you could go to do that work and get that training. Like, for instance, let's say you're an NVLD guy and you've got good gross motor skills. You're big, you're strong, or you're a woman with good gross motor skills. Sort of unusual, but let's say it's true. What if you are also an excellent test taker because of your fabulous language skills?
A lot of NVLD people are fabulous test takers.
Nobody says you can't take the firefighter's exam. These are, or any other municipal job you want. These pay a middle-class living or better, and they don't require a college degree. And they are the jobs for heroes, first responders.
It's nice to be a hero.
Everybody loves a firefighter. Everybody. It's a nice job to have. So if you have that, the other thing you can count on that will make you feel good in a municipal job like that is the routines are exact. Well, for firefighters, it's because life and death are on the line when you go to a job. They call them going to the job. So what are you going to do? You're going to learn exact routines at all times for every circumstance, and you're going to drill them endlessly. You will feel confident that you know what you're doing.
Because you're smart and you can learn. So again, going back to that kind of trademark or commonality of NVLD individuals having a hard time recognizing patterns. Well, once you learn to recognize them, you can practice them, and once you practice them, you can become great at them.
And I have a guy who turned out to be a great detective. Who would have guessed? But he is amazing at holding detail. He began to do security, NSA kind of work. Another guy becomes a police detective. He broke my heart one day. He just said, "I'm the only friend some of the victims of crime will ever have." And he saw it as his duty to see if he could put together the puzzle of what had happened, to put together evidence that he would never forget. He was the greatest witness you could ever call onto the witness stand, because you couldn't shake this guy's story once he had it. So you see what I mean? Nobody says you don't get to have a happy life. You do.
Right, but you need to remember that your uniqueness means that you can cultivate your individual talent, okay? So people with NVLD are, as Susan is giving us examples of, detail-oriented and have wonderful memories, many of them.
Yeah, I'm the storyteller and the example giver. and Annalisa has everything organized.
I am very organized. I like to be organized. I could teach you how to organize yourself, too.
Teach me. So self-disclosure is another thing I wanted to talk about. You're on the job. Now, here's the thing. I've consulted a bunch of people at big tech firms like Qualcomm. Is it okay to disclose that you have NVLD in the job interview? I'm going to say it's okay to hold that back.
Yeah, let's not do that in the interview.
On the other hand, let's say that you get the job. Then it is perfectly acceptable to go to HR and say, guess what? I'm one of your EEOC hires. I have NVLD, and here's what it means. And then they're going to say, does that mean you're not going to do the job, or you're going to expect me to do your job for you?
Of course I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to do it well, but here's what I need to do.
I need routines. I need you to teach me once.
Right.
Don't assume that I can look at a new problem and figure it out for myself. Please show me the way you like things to be done. I have a guy who's running a law firm this way, even though he's a bit scattered, but once he learns routines, he can keep the whole law firm running with supplies. It's what he likes.
Certainly, and I'm sure one of the skills that he has had to learn, in addition to many, is the skill of learning how to delegate, if that's what your job calls for. If you're not so great at this skill, well, you delegate to someone else. So depending on what you do and what you want to do and what your passions are and what your strengths are, we can help you to, first of all, recognize them, and second of all, to also understand a little bit what are your weaknesses and how can we use your strengths to counteract your weaknesses or to balance them out.
Okay, here's a little small story. So there was this girl, NVLD, one of my kids. Her teachers say to me in middle school, let's put her aside with the other misfits. So a bunch of years later, she's out of, this is an excellent kid, by the way, sweet like cream, this nice kid.
And all that comment says, by the way, it says nothing about the kid. It says the teachers didn't understand NVLD.
This was an ignorant teacher of repellent aspect, I might add. But what happened, the reason for the story is this. This child she grew up and she became a hospitality expert. She worked for Williams-Sonoma. She was excellent at remembering all the kinds of dishes and stuff that people liked and wanted and had bought. Of course, she had an app that helped her with that too. She made people feel so special. She was, she maintained a nice, decent distance. She learned how to talk to people in a formal and yet warm way, and they could not do without her. She increased sales exponentially. You could do that.
You can do, really, the bottom line is you can really do anything. And you need to remember that NVLD is a part of who you are. It is not all of who you are.
And it's not going to define you. You know, the troubles that you're having at present or you had as a child, this is the unquantifiable thing. Sometimes that promotes what people like to call these days grit.
Certainly.
We could also call it strength of character.
Absolutely.
We could call it an ethical core. You could call it a lot of things, but what it means is having hardships, which we all have, if you face them well, can give you strength. Strength of character you can use your whole life. And this is one of the things that you need, we all need if we're going to be happy. So I just want to suggest to you all that you can be happy too with NVLD. And I want to thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much for tuning
your kind
in.
attention.
Absolutely.
We'd love to take questions
yes.
here.
Okay, so we had a little difficulty at the beginning, so I forgot to tell you guys to ask questions, but it looks like you are.
Oh, good.
Great.
So,
Money scan?
you can, why can't we see this one? Can you read this one?
Jacqueline, okay. How do I find a social skills group for a 25-year-old in New Jersey?
Ooh. Just so happens that New Jersey is a state that has excellent services for people on the spectrum. Now, that's not NVLD, but because of this, there are structures in place that you might be able to use to go to your municipal or your town government and say that you need and want to connect with other NVLD people. You can use the websites of nvldproject.org and other places to make connections. We'll have an app up and running pretty soon that will connect people one to another to give advice to each other, to do the peer advice.
And actually, I believe that the NVLD project did just announce or did release.
That's right. You're doing that too.
A wonderful,
on Inspire.
On
Yeah.
Inspire. Okay, so if you are NVLD, you can sign up for this. It's an app.
Our community, it's
a community.
inspire.com, and our community is called NVLD Link. We've already got about 100 members on there interacting and talking. I also want to say the LDA of New Jersey is stellar.
Yep.
They're one of the best chapters of the LDA.
LDA always has a chapter specifically designated for adults.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a little dismayed that you find resources that are more geared towards children and high school age people, look into the LDA chapters for adults with learning differences. They're really very useful.
That's right.
Another question, why reevaluate if this is a lifelong disability? Yes, it is a lifelong disability, but your cognitive profile can change because if you're getting remediation, if you're getting help, certain strengths might become stronger, certain weaknesses might become stronger, or, these kinds of scores that we see in neuropsychological evaluations can fluctuate, can change.
And let's remember, even though many tests remain stable over time, you need an update every 5 years for legal entitlements. Mm-hmm. You are entitled to certain accommodations. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, for instance, means that you have the right to certain accommodations to show what you know in the best way that you can. It is all about a fair playing field, level playing field,
Now I see Mitzi said something. Oh, Mitzi mentioned University of Iowa. We were talking about that before. University of Iowa is making my child take a full load to keep his scholarships. This is with a 5% processing speeds. Wow.
I really hope they change this because it basically says we don't care. Why don't we assume ignorance, Mitzi? You are expected to do just as much as someone who doesn't have all those disabilities.
Yeah.
So a full workload because of the scholarship.
Wow.
We might suggest an education lawyer in this case to advocate for your is it your son, your child, your son or daughter. I'm sure if you search for legal advocates, educational advocates, or lawyers in your area, you can find some who specialize in whatever learning issues your child is experiencing or has been diagnosed with. And that's what I would suggest.
There may be somebody connected with the DOE, a lawyer who has a private practice, and they would possibly have an in there. It's also possible to make the case yourself. I'm sure you already have, but you might assemble a few experts like an educational therapist, advocate, a psychologist, to go and make the case that this is unfair.
Right. To the scholarship team too, not just the advisors.
Yes,
because especially like you've got school scholarships, so go talk to the scholarship department, but also if it's like a private scholarship, maybe going and talking to the organization or the company that's providing it to explain.
If you haven't spoken to whomever the scholarship is coming from, you unfortunately can assume ignorance first, and try to educate for the greater good, not just of your child, but for everyone else who may be going through the same thing.
Yeah, I think advocacy in this case, you may have to take the long view of it. However, I think the argument can be made that accommodations are for fairness. They are not about giving a child a special privilege.
Right.
And you wouldn't ask a kid who needed glasses to do 5 classes without glasses because the rest of the class is doing that. I think fairness, if we can use the medical model, sometimes works with these people. Would you withhold diabetes medicine to somebody because nobody else in the class is taking it and you want to be fair?
Right. It's about being equitable, not about necessarily being equal.
And colleges are kind of the last link on the curve of understanding learning disabilities in any kind of concerted way. You'll find professors who are incredibly ignorant about it too. It is not easy. We're not saying that it is.
But we're working to change that, and the more everyone helps to bring awareness to learning issues in adults, and that it is not a question of intelligence. Intelligence scores and intelligence IQ scores this is not the issue. The issue is that learning issues do not go away. Learning issues affect, some stats say 1 in 5 people in the population have some sort of learning difference.
That's right.
So, there are children and teens with learning differences become adults with learning differences. That's really what it is. So how do we help you to manage them when you become an adult?
Mitzi, you know what? I'm thinking Loring Brinkerhoff might be the right guy to consult with for you. Right. He has so many ties to so many universities. My hope is that Iowa can be convinced that this ignorance could be dispelled for your child. And he might be the person to ask for people and strategies.
And we will share his contact information on our little sheet of notes that we will give to NVLD Project to make sure that you can all have the notes from our session.
He also has an updated list of which colleges put their money where their mouths are about any learning issue and which do not. And this is helpful.
So I think from what it looks like, I hope we've answered all. Oh, there's more. Okay. Oh, Mitzi said thank you. My 14-year-old NVLD daughter, my 14-year-old daughter has NVLD, ADHD, and it's been rough. Can you open a chapter in Chicago? Oh, okay, that's for you. Can NVLD Project open a chapter in Chicago? So I can't speak to that, but what I can say is please take a look at all of the wonderful information and the wonderful resources that NVLD Project has on their website and really take advantage of that.
That's right. And we'll confine our new little app to everything but NVLD then, since NVLD.org is is covering this so beautifully.
Yeah, definitely hop on that Inspire
Yeah.
page.
Yes.
And you can always start a thread and see if anyone else is in Chicago or has resources or recommendations for that area.
Right.
Unfortunately,
Christine
our
has a
small
great
organization.
Right.
question.
Oh, a question about Canada.
What resources
in
are
Canada.
available in Canada for NVLD? My daughter is graduating in the year, and it will be a big challenge transitioning.
Is this college? She's graduating college, or she's graduating high school?
I'm going to guess it's.
And also
high school.
tell us where in Canada. I may have a couple of names.
Yeah, because I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, some of our ambassadors are from Canada, so I can always reach out to
Yeah.
them and see
And
who
we
they've
will,
been working
going
with.
forward, we
What
will definitely
universities are
work
doing
together.
research
Yeah.
in that area. That
Yep.
would be very helpful to start coordinating the continent.
I think my biggest advice to you, Christine, is to use NVLD Project really as the hub or the conduit for all the information. They have such a wonderful array of resources, and as Samantha is saying, they are compiling vetted professionals
Yep.
in other areas. So
And this is a collection of researchers that warms my heart.
absolutely,
Here. These are some of the
absolutely.
very best people connected with Columbia and the hospital, and people who are
Dedicated to
who
raising
already
awareness.
made a difference in
Yes.
terms of thinking about what the brain structures are different in all kinds of learning disabilities, but certainly with NVLD, using animal studies, comparing data that is available about people. I think we're headed
in the right direction
days,
for sure.
Much
So,
better days for all of you and us too.
going forward, for people who are going to watch this later on, please leave us your comments and questions.
We'll get back
to you for sure.
Yeah, we'll we'll share whatever resources we may have.
Oh, I think did we get 2 new comments? Oh, there we go. High school. Christine answered high school. Sorry, they're
okay,
not popping up for us. Outside of
Takes us a
Vancouver.
while.
Okay. So yeah.
We'll look into it and see
any
what
questions that come from here on in, we will check back and we will get back to you. And we thank all of you who have tuned in live and all of you who will watch at a later time. And we hope that we have shed some light on what the transition is like after high school, what life is after high school. And we hope that you are feeling better. We hope that we've given you enough uplifting thoughts.
Please understand, it's a great honor to be asked to
Absolutely.
speak with you. It's a great honor to be part of the NVLD project. And it is a great honor that you have given us your time.
Thank you so
Hope we
much.
can be helpful to you. Don't hesitate to reach out if you can.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.